precision and correctness. Which one is important? Which one is more important? We like to use the term correctness for many things, like you are correct, correct. We say people are correct when they're right, when they're generally not wrong. But what is precision then? Let me give you an example. So you'll say, who is the president of the US? If somebody answers a person, they are correct. They're a person, yes, but does it really tell you anything? If you knew anything, it sort of is useless, right? You already knew that they're a person. Helps you in no way at all. Precise? That's not precise. Precise means that you are sort of near. I guess a better way of just using an analogy, right, is if you want to say, where is India? You can say, well, it is in the world. Okay, yeah, but where precisely? Well, it is in Asia. That's more precise, right? Both answers are correct, but one is more precise. You can say, okay, it is next to Pakistan. That is even more precise, right? You can say India is next to the US. And it's like, well, what is that supposed to mean? Well, India is closer to US than Antarctica. It's like, okay, but is that helpful? I don't even know if that's true, but say it were. So I think oftentimes we want people to be more precise. We want information to be more precise, right? We don't want generalizations, banalities that don't really mean anything. And I think that today's world, right, we take correctness for granted, even though many times things are not correct. But precision is getting lost. Because the internet gives us many pieces of information that may be correct, but not useful or meaningful, right? And I think that's where precision comes into play. When you're trying to get an answer, something useful, you want something to be precise. And you Google and it gives you some information that may be marginally relevant, but not really precise, not helpful, right? Trying to ask about this restaurant. And Google says, oh, this restaurant is like a restaurant you ate at before. It's like, what does that mean? What you're saying is they serve noodles. I've eaten at another restaurant that serves noodles. How is that useful, right? I mean, I was on an island and I was looking for food, and apparently there's a lot of food places. However, it's on another island. Is that useful? I mean, it's correct. It's nearby in a sense that it's not many miles away, but it's not useful because I don't have a boat. And the ferry runs but once a day. How do I get to the other island to eat dinner and come back, right? So precision is more important than correctness here. Because it's correct that it's nearby, but it's not useful. And so you can say maybe you need to phrase a question better, right? Which place can I reasonably reach without a boat? I think that's where precision comes into play, right? Precision requires you to know something about what the person's asking, right? When someone's asking, where is India, right? What exactly do they mean? Do they mean, how do I get there? Because in terms of flights, right? For most of us who just take public transit, which is commercial flights, does it matter that it's, in another continent when it's just another flight, right? It probably doesn't matter that much. But if there's no flights, then it's probably useful to know. For example, there's some place like Patagonia. To get there from most places in the US, you take 2, maybe 3 transfers. It takes at least 24 hours. That is far. But if you take a private jet nonstop, then yeah, I mean, you get there in one stop, right? Because you have a private jet. But that's not true for most of us. So that's why it's important to realize there's a distinction between correctness and precision. And I feel like that's the thing about words. Words are getting more useful and also less useful nowadays. I think we're reaching the point where most of us realize there's many things that are hard to explain in words. In a few words, in many words, it's just, you say it, but people don't know what you mean, right? It's like mother tongue. what does that mean? It means your mother's language? It means the language you learned growing up? Language you're most familiar with? Language you're most comfortable with? What does all this mean, right? I mean, if you were to ask somebody what their mother tongue is, you probably don't really care what their mother spoke. Do you also care that they speak it most frequently? Is that why you're asking? Maybe. Or do you mean the language you're most comfortable with? Or the language that they prefer? They're all technically different things, right? They may all be correct, but that's not useful. I learned from being in different countries that most people, the language they're most comfortable with is the language they want to speak to doctors in. In Sweden, they're very well educated. All the Swedes I've met speak English. But when they see a doctor, they revert to Swedish. Why is that? Because they're more comfortable in it. Whatever that means, right? Which is how they define it. And I think that's an important thing to get, right? Language actually is not precise. There's many ways of interpreting what somebody says, and they could all be correct. But is that what they actually mean? And that's where precision comes into play. And language is just inherently not precise. Math is precise. Language should be interpreted in multiple ways. And that's why it's important to realize there's miscommunication, right? When you tell somebody the language you prefer speaking, do they think that you mean language I prefer speaking to you? Or maybe it's different for me speaking to somebody else? The language I speak when I'm dreaming, at night I'm sleep talking. They're all technically different things. Precision, correctness, different things. And usually you have to remember we prefer precision and not correctness.